Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Verena Lasvinia, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the newest edition of Spa and Wellness Talk by VLF Spa Consulting. Thank you so much for joining me while we want to understand more about sleep. And sleep has become such an important part of wellness, and we want to understand how wellness operations can contribute to these important aspects of our lives. I am delighted to have an expert with me here today, and she is also a dear colleague, Amy McDonald, the founder and CEO of Under a Tree, a wellness consultancy. And thank you so much for joining me today, Amy.
Verena, thank you so much. It's quite a pleasure.
Amy, you and I, we met back in 2007 at a spa conference in Hampshire, if I remember right, and we connected somehow immediately. And I've always admired you for your knowledge and vision on how we can bring more wellness to our spas. And over the years, we kept contact and met at various industry events. And somehow, when connecting with you recently again, you started sharing your passion for sleep and sleep technology. And so I just felt that you had to share this with a larger audience like this Spa and Wellness Talk. And clearly, sleep is such a crucial part of our lives for every one of us. And I just felt it's not talked about a lot, not enough, maybe not yet. So if you, dear audience, join us today live, as usual, you can share your questions on the YouTube live chat. We got 30 minutes. There are some thoughts that we might go a little over today, but we will do our best definitely to get also your questions answered. So let's start, Amy. First, I would like to share, would like for you to share from all the knowledge you earned over the years regarding sleep. How does sleep affect our bodies, and what are the consequences of good or bad sleep? And actually, what is good or bad sleep?
I'd like to start with a really powerful quote from Matthew Walker. It's taken from his book, Why We Sleep, and I think it says everything about what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to quote him. There's been an amazing breakthrough, and scientists have discovered a revolutionary new treatment that makes you live longer. It enhances your memory and makes you more creative. It makes you look more attractive. It keeps you slim and lowers food cravings. It protects you from cancer and dementia. It wards off cold and flu. It lowers your risk of heart attacks and stroke, and not to mention diabetes. You'll even feel happier, less depressed, less anxious, and overall more well-being. And are you interested? And that really says it all, right? Sleep is really the foundation of everything.
It really does.
For our health. Yeah. So is there bad sleep? Yeah, I would say that, the good sleep happens neither by accident or in isolation. Our daytime experiences and what we do really prepares us for the impact that it's going to have on our sleep. And this really creates, a cycle. So thinking about your sleep and what you do during the day is equally as important as what you think about just before you go to sleep. And then obviously, while you're sleeping. So, this living well drives better sleep, and then in turn allows us to live better and creates what we would call good sleep. And I think also people think bad sleep. First of all, we all need whatever we can get, number one. But bad sleep, I think one way of looking at it is it's not always about the quantity. I think a lot of us go, oh my God, I only slept 5 hours last night. It's really, it is about duration, but it's also about the quality, right? And thinking about ways that you can wake up less, because that's equally as important as the duration. And so, I think that bad sleep, there's so many different simple ways, which we're going to talk a little bit later. But good sleep, you'll know when you're having good sleep because of how you feel during the day.
That is a good indicator. And would you agree that this is like a personal feeling? Then that sleep is related to a personal feeling in this case, when you say that you feel if it's good or bad sleep?
When I think about this epidemic the pandemic, and then also the epidemic of sleep, which was already happening before the pandemic, I think a lot of the mental health, a lot of the anxiety that is really a collective experience that we're having all over the world is really directly caused by sleep, lack of sleep, less sleep, right? And I think we all know. I think we all know how our cognitive, like our memory's working, right? It can change our sleep and the way that we look at things, not only how we physically look at things, but also our overall view of our lives. And so when our optimism and our hope and, those types of fundamental things diminish, it may very well obviously be circumstantial to what might be happening in our lives, but it comes down to sleep, right? So I think we all know. I think if we were to all think about our sleep and our sleep habits and our sleep hygiene, I think we could all answer on a scale of 1 to 10, where we probably are. It's a very individual thing.
Probably true. Now, speaking about the spa and wellness businesses, and how I see it, somehow sleep is part of wellness, like spa is part of wellness. And I would have 2 questions for you here. First, would you agree with that? And second, are there ways for spas to integrate sleep into their offerings?
Well, based on the quote that I shared, from Matthew Walker, sleep affects every single thing in our lives, the tangible and the intangible things in our lives. And so I disagree with it because to me, wellness and spa are here, but sleep is that foundation for everything. When we think about how much money we all individually spend, as do our guests, on spa treatments and fitness memberships and, access and apps to all kinds of meditation. I mean, think about what we spend, right? And yet, what are we spending on our sleep? So it's, if we want to get the greatest return on the investments that we're already making, it's really a critical piece that we're actually investing in sleep first, because then the return on our fitness and our, the way that we eat and all of that will get a greater return. Yeah.
And then the second part, would you see ways that spa can integrate sleep into their offerings?
It depends, of course, on what type of wellness facility. I'm sensitive to the fact that there's a lot of different types of spa and wellness businesses being represented on the call today, and that they're, all over the world. So I think what happens often is we think about, if we don't have hotel rooms, how can we really affect people and, obviously positively with sleep? And I feel really strongly in some ways that the day spas can help and influence and positively affect their guests, maybe even more, because they have this direct, right? Anywhere where you have a membership where you're seeing people on an ongoing basis, you can support them even more because you have this much more intimate contact with them. So when I think about, day spas, I think there's a couple of things. Obviously, having sleep treatments or adding components, having retail. There's lots of different types of retail. I was doing some research and I was reading about Red Mountain in the US, and they have this whole little, ritual that people purchase and take home. It's got like a rose quartz crystal, a Zen blend, oral tonic. It's got, pranayama breathing instructions, acupressure guide. Just super simple things that obviously most people would not know how to use necessarily, right? So being able to have a session and be able to tell them, like, this is what you can do at home. And then the other piece I think that is maybe more important is there's so much noise about sleep in the media, right? If you do research, you'll find all kinds of things. And even medical sleep experts don't necessarily agree with one another, which we'll talk about. And so I think one thing that any spa can do, and this would be for resorts as well, is have sleep experts that are able to come in, whether it's on webinar or whether it's in person, depending on the size of your facility, and really speak to the simplicity of sleep hygiene and really kind of cut it down to really basic things that everybody can do, because we're all so busy. So those are, 2 things that I think about right away. Other things would be, training your staff in health sleep, because we obviously need to invest in them just as much as in our clients, offering sleep education in different ways, right? Different types of apps that you could give either to take home, but also for hotel guests. And then offering products and services. I mentioned a few, but, obviously aromatherapy, lots of different things, and also looking at biohacking. I think that some spas could also have, loungers where people can take naps. I mean, that is not obviously like a good night's sleep, but different ways to relax people so that when they do go home, finally to their own beds or to their hotel bed, they're already more relaxed. So we could spend this whole call talking about those types of options.
Probably. And what I loved was the educational part for probably myself, which I'm also doing even today with you on this call, because I'm learning so much from you, which I hope everyone is, but also education to guests and also the team, in order to provide them with tools eventually and awareness of how they can improve eventually their sleep.
And I think, one of the things that I don't know that most guests think about is what they do before and after their treatment, right? And so, we've gotten better at saying, it's better if you take a steam or sauna. There are things that you can do before treatment, and then afterwards, we're giving them a drink of water. We're talking about, different things that they can do to maximize the return on the time and actually the receiving of their treatment. And so that's an opportunity to talk about sleep as well when they get home.
That's true. Are there any specific sleep treatments you have come across that spas offer?
So I have a few. Actually, I have quite a few. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to call out, a couple. So one that I thought was really interesting is the Park Hyatt in California. They actually have, they did a pilot in a couple of different properties, but they have this Vera Via sleep package, which I thought was sort of simple and lovely. And it's combined with other programs such as weight loss or stress management. And it includes sleep tracking, a one-on-one consultation with a naturopathic doctor. It's a more holistic approach, a more 360 approach to sleep. And then they have like a nightly use of a Watch Pat 1, which is sort of a wrist device with a finger sensor. But it detects like their oxygen levels, body position, heart rate. Obviously, it monitors REM cycles and things like that. So that's just something that really empowers them. Obviously, they may or may not purchase things to take home and continue, but I liked that. I liked that one. Another one that I thought was, again, easy and lovely is Peninsula. They have two pilots, or at least when I did the research, one in Chicago and one in New York. And so they have a 2-hour treatment that includes an aromatic foot soak, a body massage, a facial massage. They do a lot of Ayurvedic work kind of with the nasal passages, because obviously, right, a lot of us have sinus issues, which also affects our sleep. So they do a lot of marma points and, lymphatic drainage in particular in the face. They have like a nasal oil, and then they do quite a few different things with Ayurvedic medicine that they actually let people take home with them. Another one that I loved, which is the Hotel St. George in Helsinki in Finland. I thought it was interesting because if you think about it, right, Helsinki only gets about 6 hours of daylight for certain periods during the winter, like other countries. And so, they're really focused on curtains and different things for the room. But beyond all of that, they have resistant bands, they have healthy snacks, they've curated a library to encourage guests to go and read before bed, not necessarily about sleep, but just to read and get off the phones, obviously being very key.
Activities.
Yep. And then additionally, they can turn their room into a bona fide sleep lab by booking a personal sleep consultation. The hotel wellness team has something called MFit-QS, which is a sleep monitor. To slide seamlessly, it goes underneath your mattress. And so they have a lot of different types of tracking as well for their heart rate, breathing, body movement, and also just to see, how the nervous system is responding. So all of that is obviously really great, and then they have a meeting afterwards and talk about it. And it's like a 7-day package, so
Wow.
obviously having a guest for longer is much better. Canyon Ranch, also in the U.S., something very, very similar as well. And then obviously Six Senses, being a global brand, first rolled out a sleep program in 2016, and then they really have these resident sleep ambassadors, which I think is obviously really great. So they have these experts that have come in and created, obviously, all of the programs that they have. But some of the things that they do is they have like a shut-eye with a targeted pre-arrival questionnaire just
Okay.
about their sleep pattern. They have custom bedding. They have a wellness book where you can actually literally like brain drain all your worry onto, out of your head and onto a piece of paper, which I thought is super simple but really powerful. They have a
Yeah.
sleep tracker, and then they obviously meet with this wellness expert afterwards to kind of talk about it. So again, we're not talking about a lot of capital expense for a lot of these things,
Yeah.
right? Some of them, yes, but I think it's also important to realize that a lot of this gives us a retail opportunity also. So that's just sort of a quick overview. There's a lot going on in this space.
And there's so many different aspects to touch into, and I love the examples that you shared. Now you said retail, yes, more and more when it comes to sleep, CBD products, for example, have become very popular, and some spas they feel really the pressure from guests and the expectation that they would like to see CBD products and also treatments performed with them. What's your take on that?
Well, I referred a little bit earlier in one of my responses that there's controversy and not everyone agrees, and I think first of all, really doing your research. There's a lot of CBD products on the market that really are not very effective, and so being very educated in CBD, I think first and foremost is really important. As far as whether or not, it was interesting because I'm an advisor to Bright, which is a sleep company,
Okay.
and their research, Matthew Walker, being a leading expert, really feels that alcohol and CBD and obviously THC are inhibitors to sleep, and yet there are other physicians that disagree. So it is an interesting thing. I worked with Rebecca Robbins, who I'm going to talk about a little bit in a few minutes. And, she obviously works for Harvard, and, Harvard feels pretty strongly that there is not enough information out there yet. However, as I know a lot of people personally and also professionally that use CBD, and it has really helped them. So if you look at the studies, like I have a little bit right here, but so according to Medical News Today, and I think that we're putting some of these links into the chat as well.
That would be amazing.
Early studies indicate that high dosages of CBD may support sleep. So there's the may. One investigation found that compared with a placebo, a CBD dosage of 160 milligrams increased sleep duration, which is obviously important. Obviously, when you think about anxiety and sleep, they really, go hand in hand. So researchers found that 25 milligrams was the most effective dosage for anxiety, but that sometimes sleep actually needed higher doses. According to the Radical Brand Insights report, which I think we're sending the link to, which I strongly recommend people to read, it quote unquote improves sleep quality, anxiety, and well-being could be realized with as little as 10 milligrams a day. And that was a report that was specifically done by a third party on the Prospect Farms full spectrum dream tincture.
Okay.
So, what my hope is that more and more CBD companies will get third-party research done, because I think we need to know, right? So education is really important around CBD. And if you are going to have it, then make sure, ideally in the perfect world, that it is full spectrum, and where it's being sourced, and be selective. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did, and I think that retail is, you absolutely did, Amy, and I think that retail is an opportunity, but again, it needs to make sense for your own operation? And there's no broad answer to this.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I think in the next couple of years, it's going to change a lot. It needs to, but there's more and more focus on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that too, that we are in an evolving stage, and with time we will earn more studies and insights, which will be more helpful to answer such a question that I just asked you. Now we're hopefully towards the end of this recent pandemic, and I would love to know if you have any insights or have read any studies on how actually this pandemic has influenced our sleep.
As we know, probably all of us know and have been impacted, whether it's, within our own lives or the lives of a friend or family member, the pandemic has created incredible impact on mental health. And there's no way we can look at mental health without sleep. Was it the lack of sleep that created more mental health and anxiety, or was it this that created this? Chances are it's been more our mental health has been affected, and then it's affected sleep, right? So now it's just this cycle. So there's no question, like I said, earlier, there's a collective epidemic around sleep. And even though it was obviously happening for a lot of different reasons before the pandemic, it has really obviously increased. And across the board, right, we're seeing, the impact on teens in particular, and the impact on their cognitive health and their overall mental wellness, right? But we're seeing it across all the ages. We're seeing it across all countries and cultures. So, it obviously has affected us a lot. And I think we are coming out of it. But more now than ever, I think we as an industry have a responsibility to say, this is what we know and what we don't know, right? And to come back, Verena, to what we said about education, staying educated and allowing our guests to have access to that information in whichever way that we can. We can't change everything overnight, but I think we do. And when you think about this, the hotel industry, hospitality is all about beds, right? I mean, that's sort of at the core. So the more that we...
technology that is out there, maybe. I know you know lots of about beds that improve sleep. Anything that you can share here?
There are a lot more types of beds coming on the market. There's no question. I think
I could see that in ice spa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think again, if we have to think about what we're going to do for our guests, comfort is probably the most important thing. Comfort and temperature are really important. But if you think about how many nights an actual guest stays in our hotel, if you looked at collectively, right, it's 1 or 2 nights. Obviously, there's exceptions to that, but it's not a lot of time. And so you may or may not get temperature right in those first couple of nights because you don't have a relationship right with that guest. And but the comfort is key. And so that's the piece that, that I'm really looking at, is when I look at some of the beds on the market, and there are, more and more now, I'm really looking at which one is going to offer the greatest comfort, so that first night, because that first night's so critical, they're going to be able to sleep deeply and for as long as they can and wake up feeling more refreshed. So comfort is really important. And obviously temperature is as well. Temperature helps us fall asleep. It helps us stay asleep if it's right. And it can even help us wake up. And so I do think that beds that offer temperature, especially at home, for people so that they can have a relationship, right? And I think also beds now are split in 2, so 2 different sleepers can basically customize what they want. But I really think it comes back to comfort, and there's obviously a lot of technology out there that's really helping that.
Great. Thank you for your insights until here. Let's go to our chat and see if we have any questions there. I have Laura Gershik, who says hello. Nigel also says, so nice to see us, as well as Angelica Kanter from Los Angeles. And now Nigel has a question, Nigel Franklin. What is your opinion, not on sleep tech specifically, but on the amount of sleep technology currently available And how do you know which one is rooted to science and research and which one is fate?
Only Nigel would ask a question like that. Thank you, Nigel.
That's why we love him.
So I have really, I really highly recommend anyone on the phone to read Matthew Walker's book. I think we put it in the chat. I learned a lot about that. There's so many things that we can first do before we even look at technology, right? I think about going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. I mean, we don't need technology to help us necessarily with that, right? Sleeping in a cool room is very, very important. It helps us fall asleep. Obviously light and sound and air quality can really be disruptors. So, whatever we can do both at home, but also as hotel operators. Obviously limiting caffeine, right? So not drinking a cup of coffee and then, these are just super simple things that we all forget. Alcohol, obviously, disrupts sleep as well. White noise can help. There's so many things that we can do. So I always suggest to start there. And I like Matthew Walker. I read a lot about Rebecca Robbins, who also has a couple of books out. I think we put her in the chat. A lot of people, read Dr. Bruce as well. So I really start with the experts, and they typically, blog and have views on a lot of the technology. A lot of people really like the Oura Ring as an option. I'm not a really big fan of wearable technology. I find it disrupts me and my sleep. And so that's part of why, I think that the technology built into beds is best if possible. But really, it's about educating. Most of the beds on the market right now, have an app of some sort that, really basically tells you how you're doing in the morning, things that you can do to improve. And I think that that's the best direction to go. And there's differences, right? There's beds that are complete, like Bright. There's Sleep 8 that's more like, or 8 Sleep that has a topper. It takes time to do that research, but it's definitely worth it. And I don't know, did I answer your question, Nigel?
Let's see what he says. Well, it's so good to have you. And anyways, Laura, Nigel, Angelica. And Laura has another question. Thank you, Laura. She said, what, if any, is the role of spa in promoting sleep wellness? We know hotels are integrating more technology in the rooms, but is there anything being done in spa specifically? I know you spoke earlier a little bit to this and gave some examples. Is there anything additional that you would like to add to this, Amy?
I did some work with the Scottsdale Princess. It's a Fairmont property, and the GM really wanted to have. We piloted sleep wellness suites, and so we did actually. He put Bright beds into, I don't know, eight or so of their rooms, but what he really wanted was to see how it would drive revenue back to the spa. And so that's why I feel like we can, our responsibility, if we do manage and operate our own spas that do have, are attached to hotel rooms, is spa comes over, right? So the things that you're doing in your treatment rooms, some of that can be brought into the wellness suite, but also building a package where, when someone is actually booking a stay in this wellness suite, whether it has a fancy bed or not, is to package in treatments that are either done in the room or in the spa. And so the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess, that's what they did, because you can't have a silo of what's happening for wellness in a hotel room without connecting it back to the spa for retail, but also for treatments as well. It is sometimes difficult because you have to stay open a little bit later. Often, right, the sleep inducing supportive treatments need to be done, in the evening, but I think it's really important. And so having that package where you can just upsell and say, would you like to sleep better? Here are the things that we offer in the spa, but it becomes part of the room rate, gets added in as a package. I think that's
a great question to ask.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic question to ask. Well, by the way, Nigel, he said that you answered his question, so that is Thank you, Nigel, for confirming that. And we're coming up to the top of the half hour. And I really want to thank you all for your questions. And before I let you go, actually, I want to maybe wrap up quickly in a few takeaways. So what I really hold back from our talk, Amy, is that first, educate yourself, your guests, and your teams as an important point. I heard out what you said, sleep is a concern for all ages. And I think that this is something that personally, but also with the with the vision of integrating it into a spa offering makes sense and lets us think about it maybe in a different way. And actually, my third one is that sleep is not part of wellness, but it's the foundation of wellness. And I really, really love that, what you said. And I hope that with this, Amy, I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for having accepted my invitation to be my guest today.
You're so very welcome.
Me thinking, and I hope really that everybody found a little piece to take away. There is so much more to talk about sleep accessories or technologies over the next few years to come, I have the impression. So it's really great to have had that talk today, because we're still at that kickoff or takeoff road to where it may go.
Thank you, Verena.
I want to thank you, everyone who joined us today, for watching today's edition of Spa and Wellness Talk. And I truly hope you found some inspiration, or maybe got a first connection even to this topic, which you might not have had before. We will be back. Our next talk is mid-June in honor of Global Wellness Day, and the exact date will be announced very soon. I invite you to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, VLF Spa Consulting, and the recording of today's talk will be available on this YouTube channel as usual. Thank you again for having joined us today or watched the review. Until next month, goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, Amy.